Hi everyone, I'm Alister Benn and you're watching Expressive Photography. I'm here today to talk to you about the most important thing in terms of my photography and the way I teach photography and the community of people who follow my work, which is landscape photography changed my life, and more importantly than that, landscape photography actually saved my life. Many of you know that for many years, I suffered really badly from depression and anxiety and panic attacks to the point where I wouldn't leave the house without medication. I would constantly be anxious. I would have many sleepless nights, sweating and heart falling out my chest, and all of those horrible sort of anxiety feelings that some of you will be very familiar with. I existed in a fairly constant state of depression, but somewhat functional. So I was just a very generally unhappy person with the veneer of being a very cheery and happy person. The classic mental health story. Now, this is something that doesn't get talked about an awful lot on YouTube, not among the kind of main YouTube landscape photographers. And what I want to do today is to explain how landscape photography changed my life, the benefits of landscape photography for mental health, and things that we can do to instantly change our perspectives and start to improve the quality of our lives. Before we get into that, it really is worth mentioning that I am an entirely different person to who would have been sat here talking to you maybe 6 or 7 years ago. By the end of 2016, I had been photographing 15 years. I'd been running a photography business for 5 or 6 of those years, running workshops and starting to teach photography. And I had achieved a certain standard of goodness, I suppose. I mean, I was recognized as being a pretty good photographer. I traveled all over the world teaching landscape photography. But I wasn't very happy with my own photography. It felt like I was going through the motions. It felt very repetitive. You know, I would turn up at a beach and it would be, oh, well, there's the sea stack, where's the foreground? I would actively go looking for compositions. And, you know, because you get quite good at it, you tend to find something that works and show workshop participants and everyone's happy. However, for my own inner panicked mind and my depressed mind, I didn't feel as if my life was fulfilling. I didn't feel passionate. You know, obviously I love talking to clients and helping other people, but personally I didn't feel fulfilled. And I think one of the key things with life is to feel, why do I get out of bed in the morning? That passion to get moving and to do things. Everything changed when I went into the Gobi Desert of January 2017. The Gobi Desert is an empty and remote place. I ended up going there 7 times, taking clients in there, sharing that experience with people. And what happened that first time that I went into the Gobi Desert, into a landscape that's empty, is that you have to fill it with thought. It's very difficult to go into empty landscapes and just be. Oddly enough, your brain starts working. And what I found was that the person who walked into the desert, the product of 15 years of sort of traditional landscape photography, learning compositional theory, learning about all of these different ways to compose and the sort of rules and mantras. I went into this landscape looking, as I would normally do, looking for the subject, and there isn't one. All there is sand, and that panicked me even more. Now, I do tell the whole story of my evolution as a photographer and the journey out of darkness in my book, Out of Darkness, which includes the photographs that are on the screen right now, 132 of them. And what I realized is that if I relaxed and stopped looking for compositions, I was attracted to certain things. And what I realized was that the things I was attracted to somehow told me something about how I felt, or my perspective, or my thoughts, or my emotions. And what happened really was I developed a way of photographing that was driven not by looking, actively looking, but more a sort of engaged seeing. And I've talked about this in previous YouTube videos. In fact, I'll just link to this one up here, talking about the concept of note-taking. But what I realized is that I had found my passion. The most important thing in my life to date has been finding my passion. In these photographs that are on the screen, and no doubt Anne will put some of them up in a slideshow for you to look at while I'm talking, there are 5 elements: luminosity, contrast, color, geometry, and atmosphere. Any subscriber or regular viewer to the channel will have heard those 5 terms. I call them the 5 triggers because they're the 5 things that will engage you with a landscape. And what I found was that looking at any of these images in turn was a mirror to my inner landscape. And I think when we walk into the landscape looking for compositions to master the landscape, to dominate the landscape, to capture the landscape, to somehow go in and make a product, if that's what we do, then that is the best outcome we will get. However, when we go into the landscape with an open mind and an open heart to allow the landscape to either shape how we feel or to reflect how we feel, suddenly we have a different relationship with the world around us. We have a relationship that relies upon a mutual respect for each other, where the landscape and us are somehow fused, so that when we're there, we are finding a mirror of our own inner landscape, because all of us have good days and bad days. We have dark moods and we have light-hearted moods. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and you just don't feel great. Something might happen to you. There's people with health problems. There's people with relationship problems. There's people with work or financial problems. There are numerous things in the world that will get in the way of us having a good day. But how we approach that and how we let it affect us and our perspective is the best way to use art, to use creativity to express the diversity of how we feel. I think what I will do here is I'll just select a couple of these photographs and just look at them side by side. And here we can see 2 of the photographs from the book. The one on the left obviously appears earlier and the one on the right appears later on. The dominance of the one on the left is darkness. It's a dark image on which the highlights and the color has a stage to perform upon. On the image of the right, it's obviously a very bright, it's much more open, it's much more joyful, and the shadows become the structure and almost like the subject. So these are 2 different images taken of not the same scene, but obviously the same element. It's just sand, shadow, and light. Color, geometry. They're the triggers that are in here. And the image on the left expresses something very different about me than the image on the right. If you think about your mood or your mental health, the image on the left somehow is saying to me that even in the darkness there can be joy and there is always hope. I think hope and optimism are our most valuable tools in starting the day, looking forward and thinking, right, what's the best thing I can do today? Even with limited physicality or limited financial means or living in a city, what's the best thing I can do today to help myself to get outside of my own head? The image on the right, of course, is the opposite. It's you feel bright and airy and open and joyful, but there's just always good to remember that darkness might just be around the corner again, and we really should be appreciating right here, right now, for everything that it is giving us. I had a client on a workshop a few years ago, actually in the Gobi, and every morning I'd say, "How you doing, man?" And he'd say, "Well, I'm upright and breathing." And that was his way of just thinking it could be an awful lot worse. Landscape photography can mean a whole lot of things to everybody here. You're a diverse group of people, from beginners through to professional photographers and everywhere in between. You all have varying degrees of skill, motivation, determination, opportunity, equipment. All of these things are diverse among you, but each of you is unique, and the most important thing to each of you is your own life, your own health, and your own future. Here in Expressive Photography, we want to help you to become the best photographer you can be. Now, if that means talking about philosophical things or mental health things or techniques or equipment or new pieces of software or things that I use to help me be creative, all of those things are relevant. What I don't want expressive photography to be is a narrow thing. I want it to be an open and embracing thing so that everybody can appreciate it and everybody can gain from it. When we started this video, I did say that landscape photography saved my life, and it did, because I found my passion, the thing that just I know is the most important thing in my life, apart from Ann, of course, but the most important thing to help other people. On the Expressive Photography Forum, every day we're getting feedback from the members there saying how important expressive photography is to them, their development, and how it's helped them change and come out of themselves and to lead better and more fulfilling lives. Yes, we want to make good photographs. Yes, we want to become better photographers. But more importantly, we want to become happy photographers and passionate photographers and caring photographers. So hopefully expressive photography will be part of that journey for you. We do have a number of these books still available. That is a deluxe version of the book, which comes with a beautiful slipcase and a choice of one of 3 prints. And there is a standard version, which is just the book without the print or the slipcase. And of course, there is a collector's edition, which is basically a coffee table book that comes with its own coffee table. It is a big, significant piece of work with 5 prints and music and all sorts of other add-on things as well. You'd be really supporting us and our work if you were to purchase a copy of the book, or indeed any of our ebooks. And of course, we have our summer sale on just now, where we're offering 60% off my processing video classes, which hopefully will open up the world to you in a very different way to process and see the world yourself. Thank you very much for watching. I know I have a tendency to waffle on from time to time, but that is the price you pay for following expressive photography and having to listen to me to be passionate about my work. Thanks to everyone who comments, thanks to everyone who subscribes, gives us a little thumbs up, or shares our videos to your friends and social networks on your own. Cheers for now. See you again next week. Bye.